Please welcome one of the most prominent economic voices in Alberta. We are so pleased to have the former chief economist of the ATB, Todd Hirsch, to join us here this morning. Todd is... This morning I saw Todd be described as fearless and formidable. I could not agree more, and there's no question he will fit right in when our leader, Rachel Notley, is also fearless and formidable. So please, with that, Todd, welcome to the stage and welcome to the NDP Convention.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you.
Around the year 1500 AD, a Japanese shogun warrior by the name of Ashikaga Yoshimasa, he did something that he deeply regretted. He dropped and broke his favorite porcelain teacup. Now, this was not an ordinary teacup. This was an extremely expensive, a very beautiful and elaborate teacup that Yoshimasa loved dearly. And now it was broken and shattered. Not wanting to part with the teacup, Yoshimasa collected the pieces. They said, let's have it sent overseas to the maker of the teacup to see if they can repair it. Well, months went by. Of course, there was no overnight courier express in 1500. Months went by. Finally, the teacup arrived back to Yoshimasa. With great anticipation, Yoshimasa lifted the crate up and he lifted the tea bowl out of the crate, and his heart sank because the teacup had been repaired, but it had been bolted together with ugly metal wire. And my guess is it probably was rendered useless as a teacup at all. The repair job was not what Yoshimasa was hoping for, and he was very disappointed with it. Now, here's where I'm going to embellish the story a bit, because we don't know exactly what happened, but it was right around this period of time in Japan that pottery and porcelain craft people got busy trying to come up with a better way to repair broken porcelain. Rather than bolting it together with ugly metal wire, they started to experiment with epoxy glues they had at the time, and they found that if they infused the glue with gold fleck and gold leaf, it actually added strength to the epoxy and created this beautiful sort of these gold veins in the repaired pottery, creating almost a lovely organic sense to these bowls and pieces of pottery. And thus was born the Japanese art of Kinsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery. Kinsugi asks us to accept, to be restored, you must be transformed. You can't go back to the original state. But if you're willing to be transformed, you can actually change into something more beautiful, stronger, and more resilient. If you've ever seen Kinsugi pieces of pottery, they are absolutely beautiful. The cracks in the pottery don't go away. That's not the point. In fact, the cracks in the pottery are almost enhanced by the gold fleck and the gold veins. The cracks become part of the history and part of the story of the bowl. In a way, they're kind of celebrated. And of course, they are stronger and more resilient and more beautiful. Now, you might be thinking, okay, why is this economist giving us a lecture on Japanese pottery? I want you to hold on to that theme of to be restored, you must be transformed. So let's talk about Alberta's economy. No one in this room needs any sort of education in where we've been. We've been through the ringer as a province. Ever since that, well, it wasn't the original, but the most recent in our sort of collective memory, oil price downturn in 2014 and 2015. That's almost 8 years ago. But since that time, we've been through 2 major oil collapses. We've been through 3 recessions. We've been through countless natural disasters. We've been through a pandemic. I mean, the list goes on and on about the hardship that Alberta has gone through economically and how difficult it's been for Albertans over the last 8 years. And now as we are sort of living with COVID, of course we don't talk about the pandemic being over, but we are living with COVID. Our economy is picking up, But there are a lot of things going on in the global economy that are bearing down on Canada's economy and on Alberta. 2022, in fact, was a real disappointment for economists because, as the COVID restrictions were lifting, we were all kind of hoping that 2022 will finally be that recovery year. 2020 was a write-off. 2021 was a mulligan, But 2022, we were reasonably confident that things will start to pick back up. But now, in the global economy, it is anything but normal. We've got geopolitics going on. Not only the human misery and hardship of people in Ukraine and elsewhere, but economically, this is having a significant impact on the global economy, on world financial markets. This is hitting home here in Alberta, too. Largely, inflation is being driven by the geopolitics and other situations having to do with supply chains and different things. But here in Alberta, we are seeing, highest levels of inflation in 40 years. You got to go back to when, Corey Hart was the top of the charts. Back when I was buying cassette, I wanted to be Corey Hart. Never panned out for me. Oh, some applause, yeah. It didn't pan out that way for me, but you got to go back 40 years. You have to be really about 50 years old or older to remember the last time inflation was where it's at. There's generations of Albertans who have never experienced inflation like we're seeing now. And of course, as consumers, we are all noticing it. The other day at the grocery store, I won't mention which one, but they wanted $8 for a block of butter. I used to tease my mother because she would buy 5 blocks of butter and stick 4 in the deep freeze. And I'm like, Mom, why are you hoarding butter? Well, you wait till it's on sale and you can save a little money. Now I'm hoarding butter. Now I'm waiting until it's the wisdom of mothers, right? But she knew how to deal with inflation, as my grandmother would have known how to deal with inflation. So now Albertans are having to deal with inflation, but for a lot of Albertans, it's not as simple as just buying 5 blocks of butter. They might not be able to buy butter at all. We are seeing a lot of hardship. We're seeing hardship with, cuts in a lot of services that Albertans have depended on. A lot of misery. And of course, I don't need any charts or graphs this morning to remind everyone in this room how Alberta is so prone to the ups and downs of commodity prices. That roller coaster that we talk about. And in fact, Alberta's economy, it's not exactly that we're not diversified. Trevor Toome from the University of Calgary, he's got some great research. It shows that, Alberta is almost as diversified economically as other provinces. The challenge in Alberta is our dominant industry, because every province has a dominant industry. But in Alberta, our dominant industry is prone to wild fluctuations. That's the challenge for Alberta. It's a challenge for Alberta's economy, but it's also a challenge for provincial government royalties and revenues, because we are always being whipsawed by something that is entirely outside of our control, and that is global energy prices. So we've got a lot of things going on in Alberta. We've got inflation, we've got worries around geopolitics, we've got rising interest rates. On the surface, there's kind of a lot going wrong for Alberta and for the global economy. I would also note for Alberta, a lot of things are still going right. We are actually more resilient as a province than I even would have thought. 2 years ago at the beginning of COVID, 2.5 years ago, I would have, Alberta's unemployment rate spiked up to around 15.5%. I think that was the highest it got, right around April or May of 2020. And I was one of the economists that said, this is going to it might take 5 years for Alberta's economy, and the unemployment rate to come back down. Actually, it came down more quickly than I would have thought. I think that speaks to the resilience of Albertans, of Alberta businesses. But there's still a lot of hardship. Now, the good news is Alberta has been enormously blessed with a $13 billion surplus. This gives us a really unique opportunity as a province to transform our province into something more beautiful, something more resilient, something that doesn't hide the scars of the past, but in fact creates something more aesthetically wonderful and more resilient for future Albertans. And that's where I come back to Kinsugi, Japanese pottery. To be restored, you must be transformed. the $13 billion surplus gives us a wonderful and unique opportunity to transform our province. Just before I came on stage, I heard a reference to the bumper sticker. I don't know if it was on the video or one of the speakers. We all know that bumper sticker, right? That we're not going to piss it away this time. Well, Rachel has asked me, and I was very honored when she approached me, to put together some advice for her and for the NDP party about exactly what to do with the surplus so that we don't repeat the mistakes of other generations, which did just sort of squander away the opportunity. This time, we want to be thoughtful and wise about what to do with it. We're not going to be able to solve all the problems, but we can address a lot of them. But we have to be wise. We have to be very careful and calculated in what exactly we do with it. We need a plan in place. You can't just go headlong into it. Now, what are you going to do with this money? You're going to squander it without a plan in place. So I'm really excited to get working on this project. I've been given a few months to do it. I want to make sure that I've got something to hand to Rachel and her team early in the new year. It's a real honor to be asked to do it. I'm going to be consulting with a lot of other economists. I'm going to be consulting with leaders from labor, from business, from academia. I might even talk to my mother about it. Moms know what to do. She'll say, buy a lot of butter. No, I don't know what she'll say. But I'm going to talk to a lot of Albertans, and I'm going to put together the very best advice I can because we have this wonderful opportunity to be transformed as a province. To be restored, we must be transformed. With that, I'm going to conclude because nobody ever said, I wish the Economist would have talked on a lot longer. It's never a good thing. So with that, I want to thank you very much. Being invited to speak here, by the way, is an incredible honor. I haven't actually been allowed to speak at this convention for the last 15 years, but now I can say whatever I want. So thank you so much, and I look forward to being on the panel and some of your questions there. Thank you.